to another episode of the Black Briefing Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Samantha Douglas.
I'm Wild Style for Show.
Wild Style for Show. For Show is in the building. He's recovering, but he's here. And then we are super excited to have with us today Pastor David Greene.
Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, super excited to learn more about you and your run, because Pastor Greene is currently running for State Senate District 29 over on the Northwest side. And we definitely wanted to bring him on just to kind of talk about his history, because that's one of my favorite things, is that this run, it feels like it makes sense. And we don't always get that in politics.
Yeah.
But also just to kind of, I'm excited to learn more about what you want to do with it too. Like what you want to do with this power that we're believing that you're going to get. But anyway, you know, I'm trying to do a better job at intro on this podcast. So I want to start with, how are you doing, Wild?
I am recovering from a bout of food poisoning yesterday, but I'm here.
The nasties.
Yes.
But you're ready to.
I'm ready. I'm
Okay.
ready. Locked and loaded. I'm locked in. So.
We've had a disappointing week this week too, community wise. It's been tough. We've taken some blows.
We've taken some blows, but I mean, also I think this is that moment of transparency where people are getting to see who our elected officials are and who they're actually working for, which is not us.
You know, and first of all, that's a great point. Second of all, I just been feeling like, listen, all roads to next year. Next year, we have the chance to have a whole new municipal government, a whole new leadership, if we vote right. How are you doing, Pastor?
I'm doing good. I echo your sentiments.
Yeah.
We got to vote right. We got to get out and start voting for people who are really concerned about the community. Don't forget about the community. Get a title and then forget. It's got to be about the community.
I've been saying it over and over and over again, especially with this Brightwood situation. But, you know, you're elected to represent, not replace.
Exactly.
You know, as soon as you feel like you know more than the community that you serve, you're off. You are off. And if you actually do, it's your job and responsibility to close that knowledge gap. But until you do that, you got to stand with your community. And I think that's just a theme that's been coming up over and over again for me all week, is we represent, we don't replace. And that I'm not seeing that right now. I'm seeing a whole lot of replacement. And it's frustrating. But it's not what we're here to talk about. I'm super excited to talk about Senate District 29. So for those of you who don't know, this was the seat that is currently held by J.D. Ford. J.D. Ford had to run twice to flip this seat. And then in the words of Annette Johnson, because I was curious about, like, man, like, could it flip back Republican? And she was like, I don't know, Sam, he flipped it so good. She said he flipped it so good it might not go back.
We don't want it to go back.
No. Definitely don't want it to go back. But part of that is making sure we get the right candidate through the primary that can take on that fight come November. Right?
Exactly.
And so we're going to start with, I'm going to take us back a little bit, because I want to start with this has been a long time service thing for you. Like, you have been out here in the community for a very long time. And so I want to know, what are some of the most impactful things that you've led and built that people should know about?
Well, I guess I'll start with, I've been the president of the Concerned Clergy now for 10 years. Some of the things that are directly related to kind of what we're facing now is the apartment complex across from the church. They were going to, Citizens Gas was saying, we're going to cut the utilities off. And this was in the middle of COVID, so we actually contacted Citizens Gas and said, okay, citizens, we need you to be here. We're going to have the community here. So we invited them people from the apartment complex. We actually met, because it was in COVID, we met outside on the parking lot to say, hey, citizens, tell these people why you want to do this. And you need to hear from these people where they are. Because in that particular situation, the people were paying their rent.
Yeah.
It was an out-of-state landowner, or apartment owner, who wasn't paying citizens. But the citizens who were staying in the apartment were getting ready to take the blame for what some out-of-state owner was doing. We felt that was egregious. We felt it was immoral. So we brought them together, and we were able to stop that from happening. So that's something like real dealing with utility companies, because that's still a fight today. When we look at some of the things that are going on that are being attempted, that we've done, that we've been a part of in terms of the solution to say, okay, because we invited the city, we invited citizens, we got the people who were renting, said, you come on over too. Let's all just have a session. Let's talk about this. And that was successful to be able to, when you bring people together, to work it out.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. It's so like real too. I think a lot of times people don't, it's hard to always make the connections between like politics or community leadership and like what's happening in your day-to-day life. And that's one of those like very direct things that's super impactful that we probably don't have enough of. In truth, we don't have enough communities that are represented that well, there's and you've been at this a long time, so like when did you get involved in this kind of community work?
Well, I've always been a believer in, even from a church standpoint, I've told the church, if you don't impact the community, you're not really doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
If something was to happen to the building, you got to have some people say, we would miss that building because of the services and work that they do. Otherwise, there are churches everywhere. If you just want to have a Sunday service, they're everywhere. The key is, how do you impact community?
Yeah.
So when we built in 2002 and moved in there on Kessler, we built it around education and childcare. We did not build that as a cathedral built around worship. We built it where, okay, we're going to be educating our children, because I'm a huge believer in education. I truly believe if you don't start children out early, then they're going to have problems. If their first exposure to the academic process is in kindergarten or first grade, you got a challenge, because that child hasn't even learned how to operate in a structured environment. And if we're not careful, they'll get labeled early. So early childhood education was extremely important to me. We invest early, get them started on the right path, so that when they transition and they get in elementary school, they're the best they can be. And that's really the goal for every child we've had come through our facility. We were able to get NACE accredited, pass the quality through the state, level 4, because, we understand we got to invest in staff to have a great staff, but it's all about the education of our children. And if we don't do that, then shame on us. We have to do that for everyone. Predominantly we got black and brown children. We've got to make sure we get them prepared, ready to go, and move forward, because they're serious about these things when they say, if you don't pass I-read in the 3rd grade, we're going to retain you.
Yep.
And those things statistically show that that's not overwhelmingly successful for those kids that they do that to, because of the impact on them. So we want to be able to say, hey, let's get children prepared. Let's make sure they're learning what they need to learn. They can go in the classroom and be successful. Because if they start out behind, Samantha, they're going to always be behind.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so hard to come back.
Yeah. Not impossible, but extremely difficult.
But hard. Yeah.
But it's very hard to do.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned concerned clergy, and I wanna come back there, because I've been a critic of concerned clergy, but as I learned more, I realized that I was a critic of specific people that are within concerned clergy rather than the organization itself. And some of the points that made me start to question that was like when I seen y'all call out like the power hoarding with like KSB and that stuff that was going on. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Like, man, I was like, oh, thank God somebody else like other than us like on the fray are saying that. Like, is that when you guys look at your role as concerned clergy, because like we just talked about, from going from, utility bills all the way to calling out Democrat leadership, what really drives you guys on like what you decide to come out about, what you decide to take a stand on, like where, like, because it's such a broad range, like what makes you guys really decide like, oh, we're gonna attack that thing?
A lot of times it's driven by the silence of others, believe it or not, to look and say, that's an egregious move right there. And where are the voices saying that's not right, regardless of where that lands on the scale?
Right.
And so I think we don't. There are many situations, especially happening to black and brown people. Somebody needs to say something.
Yeah.
And speak up. And the reality is, some organizations are tied down in terms of economics. Because if you get money from certain things,
Yes,
then you can't take the money and talk about them at the same time.
Yeah.
And so the concerned clergy, because we're not getting those dollars from organizations and people, we're freer than most to make a statement. That's not to say anything negligent about other organizations, and I like that freedom. And you want to be free, and you need, when something needs to be said, I think we owe it to stand up for our children, grandchildren, our communities, and say, this needs to be said, regardless of Democrat or Republican,
right?
When it needs to be spoken to. I don't think we get there. I think part of the reason where we are as a state and as a community is the silence.
Yes.
They know I can say this and get away with it. I mean,
Yes.
for example, the governor recently came out and said, we're going to take Turning Point USA clubs and we're going to start them in our high schools. So they're training a generation, right? Now, do you let that go on? Or does that say, wait a minute now, if he can do that and say that and nobody says nothing back, especially of color, some of us in the minority side of it, then that gives him to go ahead to move it from what may start at extracurricular to becoming the new civics class for all we know.
Right.
Right? And so do you want that to go on, or do you want to say, regardless of what it costs me, I got to say something about that. We got to speak up about that. And so most of the time it's driven by, if somebody else is doing it, we can just support them. And if not, sometimes you got to say, hey, this comes with a cost. Are you just being a troublemaker? They're going to try to label you as that. But at the core in your heart, you got to know we got to speak up.
Right.
I came out of poverty, grew up in poverty, so I know what the struggle looks like, been a part of that. And my calling is one to represent the disenfranchised, not the rich and famous. They got it made. But to say, okay, how do we help people in their struggle? Then you can sleep good at night, because at least you spoke up, you said it, and then you let the chips fall where they may.
That's something I say often. Like, I got to be able to sleep at night.
So I want to piggyback on that. Of what the concerned clergy is, y'all have not shied away from controversy. I've seen y'all criticize directly the mayor of Indianapolis so many occasions. And also, particularly one former police chief who had a lot of police action shootings that he never seemed to really take responsibility for.
By that point, I was a fan.
Yes,
Purely a fan.
Y'all did not shy away from that. And I think, I hate to say this, but when it comes to a lot of black organizations, they're not gonna go hold the mayor of Indianapolis accountable. It just doesn't happen that often, and they certainly are not gonna go hold a black police chief accountable for what he's doing to the community. So I thought, did you get a lot of pushback for that?
Well, yeah, there are people like, okay, he's a black person, we shouldn't say anything about a black person. And we tried to explain accountability is accountability across the board. So if you're going to want to hold other people accountable, then we have to hold ourselves accountable.
Yep.
I think that's for me, that's a part of servant leadership, is to know, hey, you're going to be held accountable. You can't just have this one-sided relationship, or you can't have all these things you're going to ignore and not respond to, especially when they're impacting the community. Because it's not really personal; it's about the community. And so, from a community standpoint, whether it's the mayor, because we got money to do certain things. Well, I want some of that money to flow to black and brown neighborhoods in terms of getting fixed, or it's the police chief. Okay, you see all these police action shootings. I'm not anti-police. I'm just saying You can't allow that to continue
Yeah.
and be the standard. You have to speak up and say, wait a minute now, we're not going to be having that. So you have to be held accountable. You can't get a position and say we're not going to hold them accountable. If our city gets a black mayor, I don't believe that should become with a pass to say, well, we'll never, have any accountability to this black
Right.
mayor. We're just going to say because it's a black mayor, we're going to roll on, because that black mayor, depending on where their money comes from, could be just as egregious as a white mayor.
Especially because you're talking about where money comes from. I want to ask, what's your personal rule for where you will and won't take money from?
I'm a grassroots guy. For me, when I got into the race, it's about the community's going to make the decision. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be large farmer groups or any other groups saying, okay, they put Greene in office, or charter schools or any of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be consistent to who I am. I'm going to leave it up to the community to decide, because I've been doing a lot of this work. You'll look and say, okay, do you want Greene in the state Senate office or not? And they'll make that decision. I don't want it made by large groups, large organizations that think they own you then, right?
Right.
They're going to say, hey, if we give you, $50,000, okay, well, so they're going to feel a certain way. I want to, in this primary, be heads down and saying, okay, community of Indianapolis, what do you want?
Right. And I think that's fair to say too. You want this kind of leadership, then we have to support that. We got to be there for that. So I'm gonna transition this just a little bit, and I want to just ask you about why state senate and why now?
Why state senate? Because J.D. Ford did a great job. Mm-hmm. He moved on to run for Congress against Victoria Sparks. We certainly wish him nothing but the best. But we also want to keep that district a Democrat district. And so I felt like, why not now? It would be a chance for me to lend a moral lens to what we're seeing in the State House. Because for me, when I look at those issues, I don't see them just as political issues. I'm looking at the issues of when we have working class families who are working hard, doing the right things, but don't have access to CCDF vouchers. That's a moral issue. Mm-hmm. When we have people who are working, doing all the right things, doing what they're supposed to do, but don't really have are concerned about their housing and getting kicked out of their apartment, et cetera, or losing their house, that's a moral issue. When we have seniors who are having to decide, am I going to get my medicine, or am I going to be able to prepare my next meal? What am I going to do here? That's a moral issue. When we have our schools, our public schools that are not properly funded, and we're asking teachers to do more with less and make sure they pass this IREAD, then that is a moral issue. And when you look at it through a moral lens, I've concluded you can't be silent. Right. This is not a time. Why now? Because this is not a time to be silent when we're looking at so many issues that, in my mind, are moral issues in addition to the political side of it. But it's a real moral issue, and we need a moral voice at the table that will not be silent. And I think I've proven that I won't be silent.
Right.
Yeah, you certainly have.
You definitely improved that. I think there's I know Wildstyle is going to get into how the district actually, let's go there first.
So Indiana Senate District 29 is L-shaped. You got the far west side from, what is it, High School Road out to Raceway Road?
Yeah, out to Raceway, all the way down to Rockville Road.
Okay, all the way to Rockville. But then it makes a turn, and you've got, was that part of Boone County?
Correct.
What is that, Zionsville and Carmel?
And West Carmel.
West Carmel. How is that going to work? What do you need to prioritize on making sure that everybody's getting what they need on there. Like, can you describe like kind of the differences?
Well, some of the differences is clearly with the LEAP project and what's happening with Eagle Creek. People in Pike and Wayne Township are extremely concerned.
Okay.
If you travel in that area, you're going to see a number of signs that say Save Eagle Creek.
Okay.
If you've been on Lafayette Road or any of those places on the west side, you're going to see those particular signs. That is of top concern to them in terms of that waste water, 25 million gallons of water going up to Lebanon, being a part of that LEAP project. And then them bringing back their wastewater to dump it into Eagle Creek when Eagle Creek is not a river is very, very concerning. And I'm thinking, most of us, do you believe that an environmental accident could happen somewhere along the way?
They always do.
They always do.
They always do.
They always do.
It's not if, it's when.
Right.
Exactly. So that would be a huge blow. And then Zionsville, West Carmel have a huge concern about their schools that they've invested a lot in.
Okay.
And then with the latest legislation, like in 2025 and going into 2026, with the governor's plan of reducing property taxes, he really took a lot of money away from the schools.
Okay.
And currently we have 44 schools in the state of Indiana, high schools, or the school districts, that are going to have referendums on the ballot in this November.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so all of these schools are looking at, and Pike and Wayne won't be no exception, what are you going to do to make up the difference? Are you just going to cut, and how long will that last before you circle around and say, we need a referendum, we're going to have to ask for more dollars? And, when it's Carmel and Zionsville, they're already asking those questions. Our other schools are going to be asking those questions because they've been painted into a corner in terms of the hit that has taken place as a result of that. And you need great quality schools, and you need to pay your teachers, and you need to pay staff members. All that needs to happen. You want to have great facilities, and all of that's coming with the cost. And yet, even though you may live in Zionsville or Carmel, like West Carmel, you still have a lifestyle, and you want to maintain that lifestyle. Well, if healthcare prices continue to rise, and you have to pay more taxes, home insurance is up, everybody's feeling a pinch. Everybody is not as comfortable as they used to be, regardless of where they are in that L-shaped district.
Okay.
Now, they get there for different reasons sometimes, but most of them are in the same boat, like, I really want to stay where I am. I like my neighborhood. I don't want to get forced out or forced to downsize or forced to move to an area I don't want to move to because of the affordability issues that are plaguing everybody across that L-shaped district.
Okay. I'll tell you what, you talked about some things that I didn't even realize. I mean, I knew, SB1, the property tax bill, it created problems, but I did not realize that no matter where you are in that district, like the school districts are all having to put out referendums with this. So
that's exactly what they're having to do.
That's so. IPS is they're putting out a referendum.
Yeah, they're going to be looking at something, right? What are they going to do?
Yep. So with this L-shaped district, you got this super fat rectangle at the top. You have a thinner kind of, I don't know, leg of it's like an upside down L. Yeah. I guess is what the longer leg of the L is coming down toward Pike and all of that. So I actually started pulling numbers before you got here because I wanted to see land doesn't vote, it's people.
Right.
And so even though that your country accent makes me want to talk country. You're from Kentucky?
I'm from Kentucky.
I know, and you know what? And I feel it, y'all. Every time I go down for my family reunion, I come back with a twang, and it's just there's something about it. I don't know why. I just want to pick it up as soon as I hear it. So anyway, sorry. So if I start to sound country, y'all know why. Anyway,
I've never been able to get rid of it. I've been here since 1985,
Oh, wow.
and I've never been able to get rid of it. So it just stays with me.
it's one of those things that you just want to go like right into it. With my family, I just want to go right into that. I'm sorry. I know I took a steep turn there, but sorry. Anyway, land doesn't vote. People do, right? And so that northern part of the district, it is bigger as far as like land goes, right? Like land mass goes. However, there are less people up there. And so right now there are there's multiple people running for the Democrat, right? For the Democrats up there. But then, and I guess we'll talk about that first, because there's Demetrius Hicks, there's Christina Moorhead, and Kevin Short, which I don't think any of us have heard from. So we can kind of, he may pull some votes, but not many. So it's really like the three of you fighting over this district. And you got, I know it's been explained to me, especially by people in Pike, that it seems like you and Demetrius are kind of fighting over that southern part of the district while Christina's really working hard on that northern part. What is that? Is that the case? Do you feel like that's the case? Or have you guys been trying to run a campaign throughout the whole district?
I've been trying to run a campaign throughout the entire district. This week I was at an ICE rally that was held up in Carmel. Mm-hmm. Next week I'm speaking at the Carmel Democrat Club. So I've been focusing across the entire district for them to know who David Greene is.
Yep.
So that's for my campaign. We're focused on the entire area because you got to represent the entire area.
Right.
So I went to really listen. Mm-hmm. The ICE issue is a huge issue in Carmel because they're going to put an administrative ICE office up there.
Oh, yes.
And it was good to see and hear people pushing back on that issue and saying we don't want ICE present.
Right.
There's a huge emphasis there in West Carmel. They want what we want: local control, local voice. Mm-hmm. So people don't want to be dictated to and be made, let's do this, you have to do this. They want local voice, local control, which is something I agree with.
Right.
Local voice. Don't be doing these things and local people aren't there and just making a decision, say this is what you get.
So that northern part, I think this is one of the reasons why I was asking you, because while that northern part isn't it isn't as dense, right? Because you got about let me see, that voted in the last midterm primary, which is the most comparable because this is a midterm primary. It just doesn't turn out as much as we do when we have like a presidential election. That's all the midterm is. And so in that northern part, you got about 1,372 Dems that turned out for that up there. But then you have 2,619 that turned out in that lower part of the district. So
literally twice as many.
Twice as many. So you guys would, like, if that's the game she's playing, you guys would literally have to split that southern part of the district real good for that to work out in her favor. And the chances of her getting all of the votes up there is probably slim, especially because you're doing a good job campaigning up there. So what I am concerned about, though, is this district, like most districts, there is a huge jump between who shows up in the primary versus who shows up in the general. Mm-hmm. And, because we don't capture party affiliation in the general elections and stuff, that can be concerning because you got 40,000. So you got, let me see, in the primary, you have, in the general election for this district, you got 43,000 people that show up, 43,870 for the last year. Yeah. JD won with 22,670 votes, and the Republican had 21,200 votes. Ooh. Yeah. This was a very, very, very close race the last time. And this time you have Republicans on the other side. You got Delph coming back for the seat because he had it before. Right. You got Delph coming back for the seat. Yeah.
I've met him a few times.
Yeah. He's coming back for the seat. You have a woman named Veronica Ford, and then John Rucklehouse, who ran for another seat too, right? In the
Yes. He ran and Fatty Fedor beat him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Fatty beat him. So we're believing you're getting through the primary. What is the strategy for making sure that you're getting to those votes come November? Because we're going from 4,000 Dems in a primary to now over 40,000 people. So what's the strategy?
Strategy is make sure you get your message out to the people in totality, in the sense of, I think that affordability is continuing to be at a crisis level.
Yeah.
I think it's going to impact how people vote come November. You got a war going on. Is that really what you want? And given a number of other decisions, because we want to make sure everybody understands that Republican candidate is a Republican. Do you believe in what Donald Trump and Mr. Bryan are standing for?
Yeah.
With all of their decisions that they're making, is that what you want? And I'm not sure that even people who voted that way now, if you do a survey, say, hey, is that really what you really wanted? Because I think they want things addressed like their utilities.
Yeah.
I really do believe that they still want CCDF vouchers. I think people want their health care and they want it affordable.
Yep.
And so when you look at those things and you get that message out of what we're wanting to do and how we want to approach that, I think it's going to be a popular message that people want to do versus continuing down a path of eventually getting priced out of where you're living at. Because that's basically what they're staring at. And so we would want to bring those facts to the table. I would expect that Russell House, Deaf, et cetera, they may want to try to run from it. The main thing is you can't let them run from it.
Yeah.
Are you going to be different from the president's agenda? Because he'll talk about you if you're not, if you deviate. And Braun, et cetera. So do you want to be a part of that? Or do you want to get back to being a Hoosier place where it's proud to be at and your children can live here and graduate and stay here and not be thinking, I got to get out of here as soon as possible? Because we got to think about all those issues given where we are right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and I look at it, that is a real live choice. I watched a clip of our president, Donald Trump, this morning. Somebody had posted the clip, and he's saying that the United States of America, we can't afford to run a daycare here, and that we need this money for the military. Yes. We need the money for the military. We can't afford to be paying for daycares across the nation, so we're leaving that to the states. Let the states do that. And I'm like, well, we're not in the state that even wants to do that, even if that's going to be the
even with the surplus.
Decision. Yeah. I mean, we've got billions just sitting in an investment fund, and yet all these daycares and early learning places are closing, and so that is a real question. Like Russell House and Delph are going to have to have, do you stand with Mike Brown on these cuts with child care?
And we have to really force them to answer those questions, because the governor's made it plain, even from an education standpoint. He's saying, if you want a nice school, you fund it. He's pushed it down from, he's passed the buck and said, local people handle it. So he's saying, we ain't going to handle it. We're not taking on what the president said. He's passing it down to say, locally, you figure it out. Healthcare, y'all figure it out locally. So that's why you're going to see rural hospitals close, right? Because everybody locally can't swallow that, and then that's going to put stress on our urban hospitals, because the people outside of Indianapolis, they're going to have to drive to an Eskenazi
if
and
they make
say,
it.
hey, I need some help because my hospital got closed, because they're pushing it down and pushing it down, but yet they have money to do
everything else.
I mean, I said, okay, we don't have money for CCDF vouchers. Oh, but we can bring in the Chicago Bears. Make that make sense from an economic position. Because on one side, we'll say we're broke. We don't have money for this. We don't have money for that. Oh, but we are trying to get the Chicago Bears here. And we're willing to put this money up front. We're willing to give these people, 50-year tax abatements. Okay, but we're broke.
For real. I can't feed the people in my house, but I'm going to go buy tickets to the Super Bowl. It just don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And and this the thing too, like we're judging them based on their own standards that they set for themselves. They said America first.
Yeah.
Right? They said this, not us. Y'all said that. But this ain't looking like America first.
Exactly.
And it's definitely not looking like Indiana first here. Exactly. Right? It's not.
It's looking like data center first. But.
And I feel like that's a perfect segue though, because I want to start to talk about like actual policy, because one of the things that I really like about especially the state Senate is I appreciate like how much more seriousness like typically comes out of, outside of the theatrics that was happening around redistricting. Usually there's a lot more serious discussion, serious consideration given to facts and things like that, which is why, some of the more ridiculousness that comes out of the House can usually be killed in the Senate. Right? So when it comes to policy, what kind of policy are you looking to push forward? I know recently you've had a lot to say about like our housing situation and the criminalizing of homelessness and all the things. So like, what kind of policy are you looking forward to introducing and bringing to the Senate?
The first one would be around the child care issue, because I have a compassion for children and I understand the importance of education. All right, so as I stated earlier, you got to get them on the right path. You have to be able to get that properly funded. We've had nearly 300 daycare centers now closed across the state.
Wow.
So I
311, I think they said.
311. So
311.
I believe that impacts not just Indianapolis, but rural as well.
Yes.
So I believe I can get consensus around, hey, we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
Because if you're the chamber, you need a workforce.
Right.
Yep. You need people.
Yeah.
So they need to be on board. I believe a lot of women-led organizations will definitely be on board. Mm-hmm. I believe I can get the faith-based community to be on board. And my approach even around that is not just to reach out to black pastors, but I want to reach out to white pastors.
Right.
And say, okay, white pastor, how you feel about children? What are you thinking? And I think that if we can build in a collaboration, I don't think things get done in isolation. Mm-hmm. It's through collaboration. If you can do that, I think we can move the bar on that. And again, it's done through collaboration. It is bringing a number of entities together. Right. The United Way will be there, obviously, in the work that they do, and push to say we have got to fund. There's no benefit to it. It doesn't even make sense how when you've invested so much in so many of these entities to allow them just to close and walk away.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think people haven't looked around to like the additional fallout. So like our YMCA, our Randsburg YMCA out here closed, and like the final straw was the child care cuts. Every YMCA has like early childhood programs and things. And at the same time that we found out that our YMCA Randsburg was completely closing, we also found out that our Fort Benoit was losing their early childhood program. Wow. And so was Baxter. So yeah, like I don't think people realize like how critical of an issue that is. And to your point about women, the first people it impacts is women, because if somebody's going to stay home, it's going to be the women. Yeah. If somebody's going to stay home with the kids, most times it's going to be the women. And truthfully, coming from a being married myself, men typically make more. It makes more sense for them to go out and be the ones that work, for women to, especially while we have still so much just inequity in this space. I know you said childcare would be the first thing. What's another thing?
Well, I feel like the homeless bill is egregious as well. And again, I think you fight it through a coalition. I think that, again, I want to go back and get some of my white pastors and say, hey, this thing you got called a Bible, what you feel about this? How are we supposed to treat people? Mm-hmm. And then be in a boat where some of these legislators are looking at their pastors, and we're all in the same press conference talking about the least of those and how we need to stand together, and then let that, legislator go back to church and say, now, how do you reconcile all this? Mm-hmm. And Pastor, how do you reconcile? How do you not help nudge and say, wait a minute, this don't make a lot of sense right here. To take somebody who's fallen on hard times and say, okay, now we're going to fine you up to $500. We're going to give you a C misdemeanor. And I look at it again through a moral lens and say, that's a moral issue to be able to do that, with a clear conscience. Like, you're not really trying to help them up. You're trying to keep them down. And if they don't show up to court, now now there's a warrant for their arrest because they didn't show up for court. They are homeless. All this spirals out of control. And then what's the recovery look like? Because now you got all these things hanging over your head. If you want to get back into housing, but you still owe this $500 fine over here. I mean, all of that stuff matters.
Yep.
And I just think that that's not helping anybody that's fallen on hard times.
Yeah. Right. And it's not, to your point about our faith, is like, and Jesus said, a new commandment I give to you, that you would love one another, that all will know that you are his disciples by how you love one another. That's the way that we're supposed to be judged, and by how we're loving people.
And I think it comes down to accountability, right? So I think we have to hold one another accountable.
Yes.
Across the different faith traditions, etc. Now, all of us are pretty much in agreement. Now, we're supposed to be loving our neighbors.
Yep.
Now, if we're all loving our neighbors, and that's where we are, we can't be silent on something like this and be like, ain't got nothing
my neighbor
to say.
is a law-abiding legal resident of the United States. Like, that's because then that's where it gets in. Like, we start to separate who is our neighbor, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, whoever is next to you, fool.
Yeah,
exactly.
Whoever is in community with you, that is your neighbor. We're called to love all of these people, even these foolish ones. Exactly. We are called to love all of y'all, and y'all are called to love all of us.
Exactly.
And that we're not calling that out enough, and especially from the inside.
Right.
And to your point earlier about how, like, holding our own accountable, it is the most effective to hold our own accountable to in the communities that we're in. This is like, they'll criticize the fact that we criticize Democrats, or I'll criticize a black woman in a second. And it's not about criticizing them because of that, but it's because I'm a part of the community. I feel even more so like that it's even more so my responsibility to hold them accountable as well, because we should have a standard in which that we operate in the world. And every single one of us that doesn't operate at that level or that standard, it looks bad on all of us.
Exactly.
It looks bad on all of us, and it begins to show like that kind of lie on all of us. And that's the same across the board. I use black women because that's just who I am. But you can also go, that's for Christians, that's for Democrats, that's for Republicans. That's as long as you let these people that you share community with continue to act foolish, you're letting them attach that to whatever label and community y'all are sharing. Like, that's spilling over. There's no way. Like, you have my children, all of my sons, and I have not actively like taught them about like political parties or anything like that. Like, they know our affiliations, but I haven't actually taught them, and they will tell you in a second about some Republicans. You're like, right. Because they just see the foolishness. Children, right. They see the foolishness on social media, on TV, on like everywhere. They see the foolishness. So when you get in there, like, how do you, and I know that you've advocated for legislation at the State House. You've been there to testify. You've done all those things. Do you feel, we hear a lot about this super majority, super minority, not being able to get anything done. Do you feel super optimistic about when you get in there that you'll be able to get things done?
Yeah, I feel optimistic because I think that if you take issues like childcare, you'll be able to find somebody that's going to swing, and say, yeah, that makes logical sense. I don't think you get there through yelling, screaming, and argument, but right. I do think you can walk the line if you have broad coalitions. Like for the childcare thing, it's not Greene being the face of it. It's going to be a woman that's going to be a face of it. But what I can do is help bring people together and build the coalition and have the right person be the voice of it,
right? So
that you can accomplish the feat. They're not going to, racism is real. So they're not going to do it because some black man said do it. I'm not that naive. Mm-hmm. But you do find issues where everybody's going to benefit, not just quote unquote urban Indianapolis.
Yep.
And you can get people to say, well, yeah, you need to be with that. You just got to build that coalition. I think that's what is the path to success. I've done it before. I was a huge part of the redistricting effort. So I know what it is to build a coalition of diverse people. But I also knew going into that, I can't be the face of it. They're not going to not do it because a black man said it. They got to hear it from other people, other voices, and you got to know how to assemble those voices and let them do what they do. But know in the end, we're all going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to be successful, in my opinion. So that's a great question, but that's where I'm at. That's why I'm thinking I can move the meter on some of these issues.
So I notice with political candidates, most of them don't talk about that coalition building and specifically you said not being the face of it and getting people together and talking about common issues. One of the few other candidates that I saw talk about this, they said the same thing about finding common issues between the rural and urban localities and working with those Republican senators to figure out like, hey, like we're doing the same thing. And this was 4 years ago when I talked to Andrea Hundley before she ran for Senate, ironically. And that was how she convinced me that like, oh, okay, this isn't just somebody running for office for a free seat or, just to dip their toes in it. Like they actually want to do something, but you don't see that very often. But I've often seen you in places, or occasionally not seen you in places. The first time I ever heard of you was I was at the State House and we were there to fight against this bill where they were going to criminalize, like we're going to send kids to adult court. And somebody was like, hey, can you read this script? Pastor Greene had to leave. But can you read his speech that he was going to do against this bill? And so like you've kind of been practicing this. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not new to it. I'm true to it.
Okay. I expected Jared to say something about that one.
So, we've been doing the work because I do believe you got to speak up on these things. I don't like that particular bill again. It's our kids that's going to be impacted, right?
Yep.
And so somebody has to say something that says, wait a minute, that's not right, because it's about our children. Our children can't be there to defend themselves on that situation. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel a responsibility, not to say you love children, but to demonstrate it.
Okay.
So if I'm saying it, I'm going to demonstrate it. And so those things you do because it's important and it's necessary. You understand that the system is, quote unquote, designed against us for the most part. So you have to be able to go in and lift your voice to it. At least don't make it easy for them to say, oh, okay, well, they're just going to be quiet and we're just going to do what we want to do. Well, no, to me, if you lift your voice and begin to make people aware, those things are important to success. What you two are doing here is important to success of people who are trying to make a difference for the community, because the community needs to watch, listen, and say, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Because this is where some people are getting their information from. Yeah. Times have changed, so it's not necessarily the main networks anymore. People get their information from podcasts that they believe and trust in. Yeah. When you build that up, you got credibility. Well, guess what? If I'm elected office, I want to periodically come and say, hey, now, here's what's happening. Here's where we are. Here's what we're trying to do. Why? Because you still need people engaged. Yes. You need people to know. You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it in isolation. So you got to have people, oh, I got a story to tell, Pastor. Well, come on down because you need to share your story. You can tell it better than I can tell it. And I'm willing to tell it for you, but I'd rather you tell it.
Right.
And that's critical, especially, against a quote unquote a super majority, that we do that. Our voices get lifted, because one thing about politics, they do shift when those voices start lifting.
And that, one of the things that I really like about, truthfully, about this interview, like as I'm sitting here listening to you, I hear somebody who's settled, who's like sure of themselves, what they want to do, what they've been doing. Like, this isn't a power grab. You're not looking to make a name. I have a name. I want to use the name and the things that I've built to kind of help push this office forward, because so many times I feel like, especially recently, we've seen so many people try to make a name out of like service, in these seats, and not in the good ways either.
Never in a good way.
It's almost never in the good way. Like, it's always in a bad way. And so, like, what gaps in leadership in general? So the present leadership in our city, in our state, like, what gap do you think that you can help fill, or that needs to be filled?
The biggest thing is the connection between the government and the community. I'm a community person. I'm going to remain with the community, talking to the community, engaged with the community. That's what I want to do. And I want to fill that gap, because I think that often gets lost. I think people get overwhelmed or choose to be caught up in the enamor of, I'm in the suite, I'm in this, I'm in that, I'm meeting with this lobbyist, I'm having steak, I'm doing this, that, and the other. Well, I already have a TV at home, so I can watch the game at home. I don't necessarily need Yeah, so
yeah. Yes.
So I'm a community person. I've always been a community person. I've walked with homeless people and helped them get housed. So I train in mental health first aid for adults. So I love to do that type of work to help people. In the end, did you help somebody? It's not about some of the other stuff. It's about, are you helping people? Are you moving people along? That's what I really want to do.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I think so considering all of these things, considering the kind of leadership you're going to bring, the kind of policy you want to tackle, the experience and knowledge you're bringing to this space, what would success look like in that first term for you?
Success in that first term comes down to that child care bill getting passed.
Okay. It
comes down to getting that homeless bill. We need to undo that homeless bill all the way around. And we definitely got to get funding to public education. We've got to make sure that our public schools are properly funded, because everything else hinges on that.
Yes.
And for sure, we got to work on affordability issues. Obviously, you're fighting utilities if they're trying to raise their costs. You've got to fight things that are driving prices up and it's going to put people out of their homes. So we've got to get affordable child care. We've got to keep utilities under control and not being ridiculous, and us paying for all the data centers that's going to get built across the state. We can't shoulder that burden. So we've got to rise up against those type of things, even if it means, some company somewhere is trying to offer you some money.
Right. I think people underestimate how much whining and dining gets people, at the very least, to get them to be quiet.
Exactly.
To your point earlier.
Exactly.
You don't always have to be like an active threat to be harmful. You can just be silent.
I see that often. I look at a letter of support for the Martindale Brightwood community that was released by counselors Vop Osley, Keith Graves, a number of people. Leroy, it was all of them, and it was released about 25 minutes before the hearing started, when everybody was already
a letter in opposition. Did you say support?
It was support for Martin,
for the community.
For the community,
yes, support
for the community against the data center, and it was but it only called for the data center the people to pull out. It didn't call for the hearing examiner to rule for the community. It just said they were supporting the community, but they waited
And it wasn't released in a decent amount of time for even the hearing examiner to even see.
No, it was literally released 25 minutes before the hearing started, so nobody got it in time. It couldn't be ran into the press. The people there, you only just happened to see it online, because you were scrolling during the hearing, in the middle of the hearing.
Yep.
And that's the type of thing where you wine and dine people, and it can buy silence or it can buy lackluster community support. Like, oh, I'm behind community, and you make sure you do it in a space where it cannot change the outcome of what's going to happen.
Well, I think a lot of people do that on purpose, and I think they think that we don't see them as the community members, right? We don't put that together. Because they get to go in their speeches and say, I released this letter, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, I supported them.
Yeah. But the question is, when did you do
I stand with the community.
Yeah, exactly. But did you really stand with the community is a whole separate question. I guess politicians do that well.
Yeah.
On the other side, I want to be the person saying, hey, community, as soon as I know, now here's what we need to do. Thoughts, ideas. Doesn't have to be my idea because I'm sure somebody's going to have a better idea. But we need to be in it that way, not lackluster. I'm just trying to set myself up because, for my next job, I need to look a certain way. So let me say it this way for the next election. I need to do this. But in reality, if I was all in with the community, then I'd have been saying and doing some things much earlier and using my influence to get a different outcome, not just covering myself and, because they know people are going to be looking at that. I mean, the people in Brightwood, Martindale Brightwood are going to be upset and they're going to vote in the next municipal election in 2027, right? Yep. So, do you want to be on the right side of that, wrong side of that? And they know that's going to spill over into some of their districts, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, for me, over and over again, because in honesty, like, I don't mind people who let me know, like, what their self-interest is on the front end. Like, let me know what you need to get out of something on the front end. In the community, for the most part, we don't mind. Yeah. Like, as long as it's not something harmful to us, like, I don't care. Like, if you actually showed up and helped work on this thing, I plaster that all over your platforms that you worked to do this thing for community. It does not bother me at all. But actually do the work, though. Right. Like, I don't mind that at all. I think a lot of them fail in that transparency piece that you were just talking about, being upfront, and then at the core of it, who are you building for? I think it works if it's a you and me. Like, I'm okay with you building for yourself as long as you're also building for community. But I think too many times what we've seen over and over again, especially in our city, is that people are building for self. They are not building for others. They are not building even with others. They are just building for themselves. And I think that's like the point that I was getting to earlier with, it seems like you're really settled and comfortable with where you're at. Like, if I have this seat, I'm gonna do this thing. If I don't have this seat, I'm gonna keep doing these things. Like, it's not a I need to build something for myself. In truth, that I feel for a lot of other candidates, that is like, this is a power grab. This is to, make a statement about them or try to build some career for themselves that they don't already have. It's like, no, this is a continuation of the work that has been happening, that'll continue to happen whether I get this seat or not. And I think those are the kind of candidates that we need to continue to invest in.
Same. I mean, you're a pastor of one of the oldest black churches in Indianapolis already. You
been there 30 years.
30 years at one of the oldest black churches. You're involved. You've got the Concerned Clergy that you're president of, and y'all are activists. Y'all been in here. Y'all been in the State House. This isn't new for you. The title would be new, but how you're showing up in community and advocacy and activism would not be new.
Right. So what do you, I'm gonna get just more like into your personal business. What do you do to like keep you grounded, keep you sane? Because this work is hard.
Right.
It is very hard, and it's it makes it even harder when you really understand the consequences of these kind of decisions. Like a decision that I make in this seat, like to speak up or to not, or to advocate for something or not, or to have this town hall or not, could mean somebody doesn't have their hot water, could mean somebody doesn't have water at all, could mean that somebody, you know, is out on the street. How do you stay sane and like grounded in that?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of it is, at least because I'm a pastor, that means you're going to have to be in the Word, and so every Sunday, you know, you need to be ready. So you got to, it forces you to have some balance, right? To go, okay. So a lot of times you're preaching to yourself. You know, the audience is just there, but you're really just dealing with you, the things that you're going through, and God's kind of helping you deal with you. The other thing in addition to that is, so I mentioned earlier, one of the things I do is mental health first aid, and a part of that is self-care. So you have to have a good self-care plan to take care of yourself, to make sure you're in a good space. And so you have to do some things, whether that's, you know, you need to get out of town, whether that you need to go for a walk, whether that is, you know, whatever, you need to read a different kind of book. You have to do those things to kind of make sure you take care of yourself so you're in a good space, not respond to things emotionally and be like, okay, let me take some time and sleep on this and revisit it. Talk to some good people. I always want to get wise counsel. All of that is important in trying to not get caught up in the madness. Yeah. Because some of this stuff could be depressing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be, and a lot of times, worse than depressing, it feels like this is just never getting better. Yeah. Like this is just exactly. You are just screaming into the void, and nothing. You're not even making noise. Like it's not.
A lot of stuff, like the fight against homelessness, feels that way because you're like, some people I talk to, I'm like, this should not be that hard.
I know.
You say, this shouldn't be that hard to be doing this work on housing and helping people out.
Yeah.
But it is exhausting in our city and in our state because some of these things that are quite simple, we make it so difficult. There are so many people that sometimes you feel like, y'all don't want to fix this.
No.
And that's not limited to, you know, Democrat, Republican, black, or white, or male or female. Yeah. I'm saying across the board, there are people, you don't want to fix this.
Yes.
When I'm in it just to say, how do we house these people and fix the problem?
Yeah.
But you get in this and you begin to figure out, I'm not sure there's that many people wanting to fix the problem. Mm-hmm. There's a number of people against the problem. And you'd be amazed what they look like.
Yeah. Bull. What they look like, how old they are.
Exactly.
What positions they're holding.
The positions they're holding.
Exactly.
You got housing folk don't give two craps about actually housing people.
That's
you know, it's like you can't. It's tough. It is tough. I'm so glad that you joined us today. I do want to give you the opportunity though to like share how people can connect with your campaign, or if they want to help out, or, you know, do you have like a site? And
we definitely got a site. That site is Greene for Hoosiers, the number 4, Greene, Greene, the number 4 Hoosiers.com. There you can sign up to volunteer. We're always looking for people who's going to work the sites, the polling sites. Also, you want to give a donation. Every little bit counts. So you can go there. There's a donate button, and you've got any information. If you want to shoot us an email, it's info@voteforgreene.com. Info@voteforgreene.com. We're running and we're canvassing and we're emailing you, we're texting you. So respond if you're in my district and we text you. We love to connect with people because we really want to represent the people. Yeah. We want to represent their concerns.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that too, because I don't think everybody doesn't realize that you can respond to those text messages. Like most of us are using platforms in which we see your responses, whether that's a campaign staff person or the actual candidate, but they can see those responses and they'll respond back to you. So like respond to text messages. Like you can send messages very easily that way.
And I have before. I remember I remember in 2023 when the Hawkshead campaign was sending text messages to me. And then somebody was messaging me on Facebook. Hey, I saw what you said.
So you responded on
I did respond.
we won't get into what you said right now. Okay.
You know what's funny? People say wild things like on our my last state rep campaign. Oh my goodness, the stuff people would say. Oh my goodness, they'd say some crazy stuff. But just know there are human eyes on this, and they more importantly they can respond to you if you have concerns or things you want to share. That's really all that I have.
I'm gonna say good luck, man.
Yeah. Really.
I can't endorse you as a podcast, but I would definitely say I would endorse you as Wild Style.
Hey,
great, Wild Style.
Look at Wild Style.
That means a lot.
Me too.
Because I'm a Democrat running.
Yeah, you're Pastor Greene running, and that's the part that's the only part that matters.
Really, yeah, and that's amazing too. That like it's your name that stands. You know, the work that you've done that stands more than any kind of affiliation, and that's critically important.
I mean, if you were running as independent, I'd probably still do it.
Facts. Same. Because I haven't seen anybody else on the ballot who has put in this level of work. I haven't seen it. Have not seen it.
Not even close.
Not even close. So super proud of that. Yeah. And no, we don't do endorsements, y'all, as a podcast, but as individuals, you bet your booty. We're going to do that. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being so candid and open. As always, y'all, they don't get these questions ahead of time. They don't know what we're going to ask. And a lot of times I don't know what I'm going to ask.
Yeah. We make it up as we go along.
We make it up as we go along. So I appreciate y'all for joining us. As always, please like, share, subscribe. I will also make sure that I put Pastor Greene's links in the description and also links to anything else we discussed just in case. I don't think we went into anything too heavy though. Not that I can think of. Really. Okay. So as always, we will see you all next episode. Peace.